The most disrespected person in America is the black woman. The most unprotected person in America is the black woman. The most neglected person in America is the black woman.
Hello, everyone, and thank you guys for returning again for another episode of Every 8 Hours. If you're new to the channel, the show is called Every 8 Hours because at the time I started the show, every 8 hours, a black woman or child was being murdered, usually by someone that was supposed to love them. As time have went on, we have actually documented that it's been every 5.5 hours, but we leave the show every 8 hours because that's the way we started out. So guys, tonight's story will be done a little differently just because there are multiple victims. Usually I don't discuss males on our page, but because the male is a great part of this story and a sad part of this tragedy, I'll have to discuss him tonight. Tonight's story will be about 29-year-old Meredith Nicole Green of Harrisburg, Pennsylvania. Meredith was born on August the 6th of 1992. She attended Harrisburg High School, and when she was there, she was involved in multiple extracurricular programs, including track, which she was really good at. She also was a member of the band, and in the band, she played multiple instruments and just was very talented overall. After she graduated from Harrisburg High School in 2010, she decided to take a couple of courses at Central Penn College, where she majored in finance. Ultimately, she left the school because she decided that she wanted to pursue her dreams of acting. So she completed Barbizon Modeling and Acting School on July 16 of 2017, and during her time, she studied techniques that she would use to launch her career. She ultimately became involved in two different theater groups, the Gamut Theater Group and the Sankofa African American Theater Company. Meredith performed in several big productions, which included For Colored Girls Who Have Considered Suicide, When the Rainbow Is Enough, Lady in Green, and A Midsummer's Night Dream. So she was a great actress. She was very dedicated. For each show, she would have daily rehearsals, and she was very committed to the theater. On top of that, she had two beautiful daughters. And she was also the daughter of an ex-council woman, and her mother, who was the ex-councilwoman, had recently had a stroke. So her and her fiance were dedicated to helping to take care of their mother, also who helped take care of their mother after her stroke because she was had a lot of weakness and she just needed a lot of help. So she lived with Meredith, her fiance Tyler, and their two kids, as well as her little sister Brittany. So Brittany, their brother Gerard, and Meredith all took care of the mom after she had a stroke. So Meredith was lucky enough to have found love in this lifetime. She was engaged to the father of her 6 and 7-year-old daughters, and his name was Tyler Thames. And from what I've done from my research, it seemed like he was a good man, a good fiance. They became engaged on August the 10th of 2021. They were both well known in neighborhoods. They were active in their communities. Meredith had a dream of moving to Atlanta because she wanted to work in Tyler Perry Studios one day. And from everything I read, Tyler was very supportive of her dream, and he was there to help her accomplish her goals. Unfortunately, on February the 9th of 2022, Meredith's own brother, her older brother, would destroy any dream she had of pursuing her acting career in Atlanta, Georgia, her daughters growing up to have a happy, loving family, and Meredith and Tyler's plans to get married. Everything shattered in one night.
You're on the 1300 block of Liberty Street. Harrisburg police in just the last hour saying that the investigation centered here involves a shooting that left 2 people dead, 3 others sent to the hospital as well. Officers were called here about 7 o'clock this morning for a person in distress. That's when they located the person who had been shot, as well as the 2 people who had been killed, as well as the 3 people who had been sent to the hospital. 1 person is in custody, according to Harrisburg police. In the last couple hours, we've seen police bring out a drone to survey the area as part of this investigation. One neighbor who lives around the corner was shocked to see what had happened when she came out of her house this morning.
I feel bad. I feel horrible. You know, I'm a nurse, so I couldn't imagine, what they were feeling and how people were feeling that are closer than I am,
Again, 2 people are dead, 3 others taken to the hospital, according to Harrisburg police. Officers remaining on scene as this investigation continues. In Harrisburg, Tom Lehman, WGAL News 8.
News 8's Caitlin Smith just spoke with Dauphin County District Attorney Fran Chardo. She's at the breaking news desk and continues our live team coverage with what he had to say.
Susan, the district attorney says officers actually just happened to be in that area on Liberty Street serving an unrelated search warrant when a young girl approached them. He says that girl had blood on her and directed the officers into the home where they found 2 people shot to death. He says, as you heard from Tom, there were 5 victims in all, including another young child. He says both children are getting medical care. He didn't go as far to say as if they were shot. The DA says the children are connected to the homicide victims, but didn't want to go into detail as to not identify the victims before next of kin can be notified. He says the suspect, who is a man, then took off in a sedan. Police spotted him and took off after him. The DA does expect charges to be filed likely today or tomorrow.
Clearly, this is an awful set of crimes. 2 lives lost, and so many people impacted, including children impacted by this awful set of crimes, and it's unspeakable.
The DA did not have any comment on a motive so far.
So Meredith Green and Tyler Thames were shot and killed by Gregory Gerard Green Jr., who is Meredith's brother, at the home of Green's mother, former City Councilwoman Sandra Reed, around 7 a.m. on Wednesday, February the 9th, police said. Green, who was released from prison for raping a child in 2016 after serving only 4 years, also stabbed his young nieces during the attack. So this piece of crap raped a child in 2016 and only did 4 years, was back on the streets in order to be able to kill his own sister, her fiance, and he stabbed his nieces. So he stabbed her 6-year-old and her 7-year-old daughter. So on top of that, he shot his little sister, Brittany Meredith, 4 times. She was shot in the mouth and several other times in different areas of the body. So not only did he shoot the little sister, but the little sister actually already had a protection order against him. Brittany Meredith, who is the little sister, asked for a protection order from abuse on January 3rd, saying that her brother, Gregory Green, had antagonized her, punched her in the face, and choked her that morning. She had originally called the police, but noted in her application that police said they could not arrest him because there were no physical marks on her. But she wrote, police advised her to file a protection from abuse order against him. She said her brother had been violent in the past with their mother and that the mother's caseworker had been helping her to get him evicted from the home. A judge granted the protection from abuse order, which included a provision forcing Green to move out of the home and have no further contact with his sister at that home. He was also ordered to give up any keys to the home, any firearms to the sheriff's office, and not post any remarks regarding his sister on social media. But 4 days later, Green showed up at the home where his family lived. He told police he knew he wasn't supposed to be there, but he showed up to get some clothing, according to court records. Police arrested him for violating the order, and he spent nearly a month in jail before a judge released him on probation on February 2nd. 1 week later, police said he showed up at the home again against court orders and attacked everyone inside the home except for the mother. The attack occurred just before 7 a.m. in the 1300 block of Liberty Street as officers from the Attorney General's office were serving a narcotic warrant about 200 feet down the street. Those officers heard a woman calling for help, and they disrupted the attack when they entered the home, sending the suspect fleeing out a side door. Officers from across the county worked together to find his vehicle, chase him, and stop him by using a spiked strip across the road to flatten his tires. He then crashed into a school bus and hit an officer with his car. Officials say the police officer suffered injuries to his leg. The women involved were the sisters of the perpetrator. So the only person not pictured here is Brittany Meredith. Meredith Green, her fiance, and her kids are all pictured here. And as I stated before, Meredith was shot to death. Her fiance was shot to death, and her kids were stabbed. The kids told the police, "Uncle stabbed me." Can you imagine what those kids will have to go through mentally to get over this? And like I said, it is usually always a black male or someone that is related to the women and children that are being harmed and murdered. It is usually someone close, someone who is supposed to really, really care about the woman or child that ends up doing something like this. You would not expect your own brother to do this. The problem I have is, first of all, why was he allowed back into the home when he had raped a child when he was younger and there were children in the home? He should have been put on a sex offenders list, and he should not even have been allowed to be in the home because, from my understanding, Meredith, her fiance, and the kids lived at the home. So he shouldn't even have been allowed. He wouldn't have been allowed around my children. Not only that, these mothers, like, I know that's your child, but after they commit these type of crimes, I don't feel like they're worthy to be allowed back into your home or deemed functional. And I know you know, a lot of mothers want to protect, their sons, especially when they first get out of prison. They try to help them get on their feet. But that man is 31 years old and he has raped a child. Not to be judging him, but he needs to fend for himself. He needs to get on his own feet because he had already been violent towards the mother, violent towards his sister. Why would he have even been allowed back into the home? He should not have been there. And then why would he only serve 4 years after raping a child? Had he got a proper sentence, he wouldn't even have been out to murder his own sister. This is really sad, but it's so many of these cases that are going on. There are 2 cases that I'm following where the cousin of 2 young ladies actually murdered them. The cousin. One of the young ladies, the cousin actually had a crush on her. And it seems like there is nothing they won't do for sex. They don't care who it is. It was even one situation where a grandson raped his grandmother's dead body after he killed her. The grandmother was 70 something years old in the UK. So the grandson not only raped his grandmother, but he raped her while she was dead. These people are sick. Do not trust anybody. Don't trust anybody. Don't leave your kids around anybody. Don't leave yourself around anybody. Imagine these 2 precious babies having to grow up with the memory of their mom and dad getting killed in front of them. Because it's not just that they got murdered in front of them. And not only that, the kids got stabbed as well. It's so much trauma in the Black community. It's so much trauma. And this lady spent her time making sure her kids had the best of life, making sure they had a loving family and they saw a beautiful household. But this was beyond her control. Her own brother, their uncle, killed her parents. Do you know what that's going to do to them psychologically? 6 and 7 years old is old enough to remember. It's old enough to remember a lot, especially when you've been stabbed. And I'm sure those girls are asking for their mom and dad, wondering, they probably don't really understand death. They probably don't really understand what's going on. And their own uncle stabbed them. And honestly, you never know what else he did to them. When he had that altercation with his sister Brittany Meredith, you never know what he's done to her growing up, because it said he grabbed her by the neck and pulled her down some stairs. That's what she said in a live interview. But why would he be doing that? And then he raped a child in 2016. Usually they don't wake up one morning and just rape a child. Some type of behavior was going on, and it just feels like he was terrorizing this family the whole time. So many people in their community and people from the theater that she um, acted in had so many great and positive things to say about her. It just seems like she was a beacon of light, a beacon of light. Check out this video, and then I'll come back with my final commentary.
Family and friends tell me that Meredith Green lived at this home along Liberty Street with her mother, a former Harrisburg councilwoman, as well as her fiance, Tyler Thames, and their 2 girls. Those who knew the family say what happened here has left a great loss in the community.
What I will miss the most is Meredith's bright light.
Sharia Ben with the Sankofa African American Theater Company says Meredith Green performed with the group. That's how she got to know Meredith, Tyler Thames, and their young daughters August and Royal.
I saw fun and dedication to each other as a couple, and that same dedication to their children and making sure that the girls were taken care of.
Ben says it's the community's turn to help uplift the daughters. A GoFundMe fundraiser for the daughters had raised well above $20,000 in less than 24 hours.
Those girls are going to need all the support they can get, and they're 6 and 7.
Clark Nicholson worked with Green in Gamut Theater Group productions. He says he frequently saw her family sitting in the seats to watch her perform.
I miss Meredith. Tyler was a good man. I'm just heartbroken and really worried about the girls.
No further information has been publicly released about the condition of the daughters who were taken to the hospital after police said they had been stabbed by their uncle. We also have not heard the latest about the condition regarding Brittany Meredith, the aunt of those young girls. Police say she was shot multiple times. In Harrisburg, Tom Lehman, WGAL News 8.
So the sister, Meredith's sister, and also the killer's sister, did a interview after surviving being shot, Brittany Meredith, and she talked about the abuse that he did to her, and then she talked about how she woke up and he was standing over her with the gun, and then she tried to yell and scream for her mom, and that's when he shot her in the mouth and then continued to shoot her. So this man is very dangerous. I pray that this time he gets the time that he deserves and don't get a chance to be out. And not only do the kids have to be without their parents, but then their mother just had a stroke, and then dealing with the fact that her son has killed her daughter, and the fiance stabbed her grandkids and also shot her other daughter. That's a lot to deal with, especially when you're trying to recover from a stroke. You're already in a compromised state. Hopefully this time they keep this man in prison. Hopefully he'll get life in prison, but we will see. I do pray that Meredith's 2 children, her 6 and 7-year-old, Meredith and Tyler, 6 and 7-year-old. I'm so used to saying just a woman, but we have 2 deaths here. And from everything that I could tell, it looked like Tyler was loving her correctly. She was glowing. She seemed happy. He was there for the family. So there's nothing really negative I can say about him. So I'm going to say hopefully the children are able to make peace with this. Hopefully they'll get some type of therapy. They do have a GoFundMe for the little girls. Last time I checked, they had raised about $40,000. So hopefully some of that money will go towards having therapy for the kids at a young age. Again, ladies, this is every 5.5 hours. We will leave the page every 8 hours because that's the way we started. Please be careful out here in these streets. Every day things are getting worse, especially if you're in New York. I mean, everywhere is dangerous, but New York, I just saw something about some guy, of course, a black guy on the train, smeared feces in a woman's face. They had another story about some man following this Asian lady into her home, a black man, and stabbing her to death. And I just feel like we just got to be careful because people are really losing their mind, and a lot more murders and opportune crimes are happening. Of course, as I always say, we need to exercise our Second Amendment. Get you some mace, get you a stun gun, get you something. Don't be going out of your house at night. If you are, make sure you're not going out alone. These subways, I don't know what to say about those. I'm in Atlanta, so we don't have subways. We do have MARTA trains, and crazy people be on there too. That's why I don't ride MARTA anymore. Unless I had to, then I would. But just be careful, and just try to watch your surroundings. Be careful who you're leaving your kids around. Evaluate every person in your life and see whether or not they deserve to be there and their purpose there. Until next time, I will talk to you guys later. Take care. And may Meredith Green and Tyler Thames rest in peace.